English for Appointments by 123Speak. So welcome to a lesson, and in this lesson we'll be covering how to make appointments in English and not appear rude. So in English there are some things that sound rude or coarse. I think that's like most languages. So by coarse we mean things that don't sound good to hear. So if you want to sound polite, practice using these alternatives. Instead of saying something like, "What?" when you didn't hear something, okay, don't say that. Instead you should say, "Sorry, I didn't hear that." So we say, "Sorry, I didn't hear that." Or you can say, "Could you please repeat?" Notice that we say could. English speakers feel being too direct is rude. So we don't just say repeat or please repeat. We say, "Could you please repeat?" Could is not really what we mean, but we add it because we're trying to be very open to people. Being open is seen as being less rude. Too direct is seen as being rude. So let's just practice that one more time. Could you please repeat? But what happens if you don't hear the person the second time? So what happens when, for example, you still don't hear what the person is saying? It's not easy to always hear because there's a lot of noise in the background and maybe the line is not clear. How do you get the person to repeat themselves again? Or how do you get the information to you that you need? So in this case, I would say something like this. "So sorry, I still cannot hear. Perhaps the line is bad. Could you please SMS me the details? Or could you please email me the details?" In this way, you save face because the person doesn't feel like you don't understand what they are saying. And also they save face because they don't feel like there's something wrong with the way that I speak. So it's a very good way of getting the person to send you the details that you need for your appointment without causing embarrassment. And then I would probably follow up by saying thank you, because in English, thank you is very polite and it's a good way of helping the other person to know that you appreciate what they are doing for you. So sometimes you may need to give your details to the other person, for example, your email address or your name. How do you make this clear to the person? Well, sometimes you may need to spell things, but over the telephone it's not easy to do that. So to spell over the phone, you can do something like this. So, for example, if my email address were tom@gmail.com, which is not my email address, then you'd go T for Tango, O for Oscar, and M for Mike. And then, because Gmail is a well-known email address, you could just say @gmail.com. That way, when you say T for Tango, people are easily able to recognize that T and Tango go together. And this is a common way that English people are able to spell things and make it clear over the telephone, for example. So I wanted to talk about another big confusion that happens when making an appointment in English. So when scheduling an appointment in English, be careful when people use the word next. Why you should be careful is because the word next is not that clear in English. And here's an example. So for example, if today is Tuesday and it's the 9th, and your boss comes to you and says, "Let's meet next Wednesday." Well, the next Wednesday in the sequence is the 10th, for example. But if he were to say, let's meet next Wednesday, he is probably not meaning the 10th. He's probably meaning the next week on Wednesday, which is the 17th. But be very careful, because if he says, let's meet next weekend, most English speakers would not think that the next weekend that he's referring to is the 20th and the 21st. Now, I know that most Koreans would probably think that this is what he's referring to when you say next weekend. But it doesn't follow in English, that logic, so be careful. What he's probably referring to is the 13th and 14th, which is the one which is the closest weekend. You see, the 7th was the last weekend that was referred to, so we would say this weekend, and the next weekend is the 13th and 14th in English. It's a little bit confusing, so what I would always do is I would try to confirm things. It's not only confusing to non-native speakers, even native speakers disagree on these things, and it causes a lot of confusion, so best to confirm. So how do we confirm these things? Well, I would probably write something like this to my boss. So for example, if my boss is called Felix, I would say, Dear Felix, and then I would say, I would just like to confirm that we are meeting Wednesday. So if he said next Wednesday, I would say that we are meeting Wednesday, and then I would put the date down of the following week, the 17th at 4 p.m. Let me know if there is a change of plan. That way he has to get in touch with me and let me know if things are changing. And then I would say, Sincerely, Tom. Now, he might mean something different, but at least he has to tell me that it's something different and it doesn't lead to confusion. So it always looks good to be able to confirm things. So this is for Wednesday, the 17th, which is the following week. But what happens if it's for the next weekend? How would I change this? So we could change this by saying, I would just like to confirm that we are meeting on this coming weekend on the 13th and 14th. Let me know if there is a change of plan. And in this way, we are still also getting him to confirm if there is a change in his plan. So it doesn't lead to confusion, and this is a very good way to confirm things. So let's just go through a quick review of what we've learned and how to make an appointment in English. So first thing, get people to repeat themselves. And second thing is, don't be too direct, as it sounds rude. Okay, if you don't hear what somebody says, don't be too direct. Use the word could. Could you please repeat yourself? Third thing is, if you don't hear, ask people to confirm in a message. That could be an email or an SMS message. Also, be very careful when confirming dates, especially when people use the word next. Remember, next Wednesday is different to the way people are thinking when they say next weekend. So thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful to you. If something was helpful and you learned something new, please do leave a comment, and I'd love to know. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.